The Destroyer's New Year's Eve. Written and narrated by John Mira. Learn more at servingworlds.com.
Uptown, Pittsburgh, 9 p.m., New Year's Eve. Where are you? Claire Romer rushed down 5th Street, already late. She blew a frustrated breath up at the blonde hair falling into her eyes. That had been her first faculty party since joining the University of Pittsburgh faculty, and faculty parties were already the least favorite thing about the job. Amy, her assistant, junior partner now, halfway through her own psychiatric residency, was going to kill her for leaving her without a wingman at that dive bar she insisted they were spending New Year's Eve at. She thumbed out a reply. "Sorry, Ames. Department head made speech before letting us leave. Heading home to dress down. Give me 20. The reply, "Hurry up, C. Drinking alone. Guy with tattoo looks better every glass." Claire grinned. "Keep it in your pants. Or rather in his." She grinned as she typed, mindful of how her avoidance of the most egregious crimes against language and insistence of more or less replying to texts with full sentences and little to no shortening of words drove Amy mad. It was the little things that gave the most pleasure, she thought, as she pecked her overlong answer. Her phone rang. She jerked, staring at the phone in her hands. No. Her other phone was ringing. The one she kept in the outside pocket of her purse beside her other goodies. Hello? Why would you want to live in uptown Pittsburgh, Dr. Romer? She recognizes the voice. At once, her hands begin to shake. And, paradoxically, Claire Romer smiles. Tom, I was hoping I'd hear from you over the holidays, and please, I told you, call me Claire. Tom sat in a rental car, lights off and heat off. Someone else sat in the shadows of the back seat. Tom ignored him. Claire's laugh rang in his ears. It's close to work, and the price is right, and it's safe enough if you're careful. I'm having a harder time getting into the routine of a new city, new job, getting used to carrying 2 phones around in case you call. It's important, carrying that second phone. We still don't understand what we're up against. If the wrong people connect us, I understand, she assured him. She didn't like it, but she really did understand. Though if she hadn't seen that light for herself. How are you? She asked. The guy in the back seat laughed. Tom smiled anyway. Why, uptown? He repeated. Like a dog with a bone, she laughed. Well, firstly, I'm broke. It costs money to start up a psychiatric practice. Uptown's close enough to the campus where I teach now, but mostly the price was definitely right. In the dark interior of his rental car, Tom nodded. Pittsburgh's uptown neighborhood barely qualified as a neighborhood. There were more condemned and vacant lots than properties with actual homes. True enough, it was close to the university, and a homeowner with vision could pick up a 19th century row home for a steal, and several developers were already moving in to renovate McMansions for sale, but it's not the safest neighborhood. Her voice came back smug. I told you, I can take care of myself. Okay, he said, humoring her. How's life as a professor? Being Professor Romer is okay, and I like working at the UPMC. Amy's on the university payroll working for me and doing her residency, but we're finding time to make headway setting up our practice. As usual, Tom was impressed with the woman's drive and ambition, if ambitious was the right word for squirreling away time to see patients pro bono every week. Teaching, seeing patients at the medical center, setting up your own practice, and submitting proposals for an inmate research program at West Penn. When do you sleep, Claire? Claire's phone hand was trembling more now as she jogged across the street, just a couple blocks from home. She darted her eyes cautiously between the cars in this, one of the many temporary parking lots in Uptown. Not frightened, never frightened, but prepared. With her free hand in the outer pocket of her purse just in case. The Pittsburgh State Correctional Institution, formerly Western Penitentiary and still known by that name to many who worked there, had only begun to review her application before Christmas. How did he know about it? Her visit to Miami, the occasion of Claire and Tom's fateful meeting, flooded even more fully into her mind now. The Miami trip and all its fallout had been precipitated by Illinois Senator George Newell. The man had invited her to a conference there on the pretext of discussing an expansion of her previous pilot project with violent criminals. "I don't recall telling you about the West Penn proposal." Tom's voice was warm but clipped when he responded. "I may be a layman, but I try to keep up with your work, Doctor. It is how we met." She froze in place, there on the street. Her breath hitched in her chest. Miami. It threatened to overwhelm her. Paralyzed on the ground, a blue light floating over her head. That mockery of a man, Senator Newell, lifting then-stranger Tom into the air and hurling him against a wall, with just a wave of his hand. Only the fortunate timing of a heart attack had stopped whatever it was that controlled Newell from killing Tom. She remembered the knife in Tom's hand, the look of pleasure, of cruel satisfaction on his face as he ended the life of the thing that had been controlling the senator, the thing that had promised to take control of Claire with the blue light floating above her, the thing that ended up in Tom instead. George had talked of plans to use her and the pilot program she had built with violent prisoners. They would put blue lights in the worst of them, and then set them loose into the world. To what ends, she still didn't know. She took a deep, calming breath. She didn't fear Tom. He was formidable. He was disturbed, she knew, but she was alive because of him. No, what she feared was the blue lights. One more breath, and Claire mastered her fear. "You think they'll come after me again?" The two talked every few weeks, comparing notes, reflecting, catching up on each other's lives. Well, on Claire's life. She still knew nothing about the man who had saved her life except his name and the telephone number of the prepaid burner phone he called her from. Except she was sure the calls had become as important to him as to her. "I don't think so," Tom answered. "Whatever their plan is, they're careful. I think they'll look for someone else to do what they had in mind for you before risking drawing attention. They don't kill for kicks. They have something in mind, maybe down the line." "Has anyone returned with questions about Miami?" She remembered the look on his face as he plunged the knife in Newell again and again. "No, no more police, no more questions. I want to ask you some things, Tom. Please know you can trust me. I want to help." Tom's jaw clenched. "I'm not sure that's wise." "For whom?" Claire asked, and she laughed. She honest-to-God laughed. He heard the sound on the phone and through the cracked window as Claire appeared crossing the street ahead. She was smiling, relaxed, beautiful. He shook his head to clear that last thought. "Wise or not," Claire said, and her voice drifted to him with the blowing snow, "I want to talk about you. What put you in that room before you knew what would happen?" He watched her disappear again across the street and out of sight. "You really don't want to know." She laughed again. He smiled. The sound was pure, simple. He did trust her. He just didn't believe he'd ever hear that sound again if she learned the truth about who he was, what he was. "I really don't want to know half of what I know, but I'm only breathing because of you. Thank you for that. Now will you let me help you?" He heard her fumble with her keys. He knew she must be at her door. He guessed Claire had stopped at her door, but the street sounds continued. "I want you to hear me, Tom. I believe you are a good man. Lost. There is violence and pain in you, yes, much of both. But until I see evidence to the contrary, with my own eyes, you are a good man. If you need anything I can give, it's yours." What would happen if he did tell her, he wondered. He felt a growing urge to answer her questions. That laugh reached him, but it wasn't meant for him, not really. Not unless he shared his world with her. "She wants to share our world, huh?" whispered the man in the back seat. "Shut up, Bob," Tom thought, and turned the key in the ignition. "Maybe next time, Doc." Ahead, two men raced across the street, in the direction that Claire had gone, moving with stealthy intent. Tom knew what dark deeds looked like. "We gonna get to play?" whispered the man in the back seat. Tom set his jaw and got out of the car.
You have been listening to A Destroyer's New Year's Eve. Written and narrated by John Miro. Music, Infiltrate This, by Atlas Plug. Learn more at servingworlds.com. Stay tuned for Part 2.